So, Austin, how do you feel about the idea that Caesar's ability to stop time is sort of, one, just a reflection of the fact that he's so powerful, even time has no rules on him, but also as a reflection of Francis Ford Coppola's vision to basically create without compromising in any way? And it's sort of really just an exploration of himself through the lens of something he intended to be different 30 years ago.
Wow, I'm so glad we're Megalopolis posting. I was going to start this by asking if I could just call you WoW Platinum for this episode for no reason in particular. And we'll just go from there. Yeah, I mean, don't mind this enormous boner I have. don't question that.
Whoa!
We'll get back around to it. I realize how that sounds if you haven't seen the film. Megalopolis, everyone's talking about it.
I want to be WoW Platinum. Like, I want to be her. Like, I want to have posters of her on the wall, which isn't great. She eventually gets killed by a very tiny bow and arrow. But she has like an aura to her that I'm like, I want to capture this. I want to be in this. I want to sit and dwell and stew. But, people, they don't come here for Megalopolis spoilers. Sorry. They're here for, which one are we doing? Crew Gunk.
The audience must be asking itself, did they unlock another bonus spew punk and this is a movie review? But no, we're just so genuinely excited about smash hit visionary work Megalopolis that we can't contain ourselves, and we are going to shoehorn it into this discussion because it is the cutting edge vanguard of art. And how can we not be in dialogue with it?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's important because we're this is Crew Gunk. So the idea behind this is that this is a way for us to discuss art and what we create and the decisions behind it, and how best to do that if not to compare it to another titan of storytelling, which is Francis Ford Coppola's impressive Megalopolis.
And much like Francis, I, of course, was smoking weed in my trailer for 12 hours a day on set. I came extremely unprepared. I couldn't keep my hands off of the extras. Just all of those things that made that work what it is. I hired exclusively extremely evil people currently being sued for their crimes, like Shia LaBeouf, as well as melted-brained people like John Voight. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, it's very funny because I had to text you during the middle of the movie to be like, you've watched more of the Baby Geniuses than I have. Does John Voight always sound like this, or is this a role? Because in the movie, he's almost incomprehensibly old. And I was like, is this just what he is now?
Yeah, this is a weirdly timed last Crew Gunk for season 11, which did feature a lot of John Voight talk for us to have just seen him finally get some mainstream work. He's been stuck in basically like Christian propaganda movies for years because of all the things he's said and done.
Yeah, for all of his actions that have consequences. I saw John Voight for the first time. Gosh, what was this? 96, I think, is when Anaconda came out into theaters. I saw it there, and he was an ancient man in that movie. And I believe, if math is doing me okay, about 30 years have passed since then. So truly, just fueled by hate, I think, by lizard brain thoughts.
That Anaconda was extremely vindicated, though. The actions it took upon him. At the time, we were like, damn, that's kind of harsh, Anaconda. But now it's like, no, I get it. I probably would have done the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I also would have spit him out 98% of the way through being consumed, but with just enough vitality left in him so he can give Jennifer Lopez a knowing little coy wink.
Wow, you really remember Anaconda really well.
How do you
Congratulations.
Not? If you've seen that movie, it is far and away the most memorable part of it, because you're just like, I mean, that's a stinker right there. If I've ever seen one, John Voight's character in that movie, if you got eaten by a snake and you've been digested for like 15 minutes of the movie's runtime or whatever, and then you get vomited up and you have just enough wherewithal to be like, how about I give her one? I can't really speak on the account of all my organs crushed, but how about I give her one more little nod to the relationship we've shared together?
I was trying to think of the first John Voight film I saw, but I've been there since the beginning. I'm an OG fan, of course, Midnight Cowboy from the best year, 1969, an incredible film. Also, Deliverance. I don't know if Deliverance holds up. I think it's kind of iconic, but we're not here to talk about that. The audience just heard the end of Dry Arc, the last Dry Arc. They're going into the wet finale, and then there's going to be the epilogue arc or the final vibe check arc where Hialeah is going to be examined more closely. You're DMing that. And since I can't have my character pass judgment on my other character, that would be weird. It is a great time to talk about Miss Killings because I am essentially done playing her. Like I jokingly pipe up, and I think she has a kind of like
She has epilogue, but
I'm not. She's not a D&D character anymore.
sure.
And I think we've reached a natural point to talk about her. This episode's a little later than it usually would be, just because I wanted to get that last Dry Arc out, because I think the thing that happens there with her is kind of the finale. It would be weird to talk about her without saying that, because I only controlled her for what, 8 episodes, counting down times?
Yeah, I think so. About 8 episodes, and then epilogue stuff.
Yeah, so I had a very short time, which we can talk about. I'm sure you have some questions prepared, but Crew Gunk interview show. This is like the first season of this, mini series, this spinoff or whatever. So I would love to hear how people feel about it. It seems like it's gone pretty great so far. Got some great insights. We tried, a very early and a very late stranger interview to see the changes there. So also there's a hurricane bearing down on me. I assume people are going to listen to this when it comes out, but if you're in the future, like you just found the show and you're listening chronologically, Hurricane Milton is just like outside, like peeking through my windows.
Get out of here, hurricane!
Yeah, so if this episode comes out at a weird time or I've never heard from again, someone upload this so everyone knows what happened to me.
Yeah, well, I will make sure I'll make that my personal responsibility. And no one can prove me wrong, because if it's never released, no one else but you, who's presumably perished in, like, I don't know, some kind of, like, Mountain Dew flavor explosion of some kind. No one else is here to judge my actions.
I mean, after we're done recording, I'll put it in the Google Drive, and then
Damn.
Sketch will be able to hold on to a copy or something, maybe release it. Because if I do, melt myself with Mountain Dew, as you allude to, some kind of thing that's going to be hard to prove in a court of law, this will be my last will and testament.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're safe. It is, I guess, worth alleviating the audience a little bit that you're not in the direct path of the hurricane at all. You're in sort of like an outlier, but still probably won't be awesome.
Yeah, I think everything will turn out fine. I think it'll all work out. If the episode doesn't come out as normal on Sunday, something's gone wrong. But if you ever were looking for a sign, if you're like, I like Dice Funk, but I've never really felt the urge to help out, maybe this is a good sign, because there's going to be damage. Things are going to fall on our car and house and stuff. So $10 gets you on the list of names we're going to read. That's fun. And then there's, the Spew Punk, that bonus show where we're going to go so in depth on Megalopolis. We're going to have a Megalopolis review longer than the movie itself.
Guys, I can't even begin to tell you how much I have, because like prior to this, the episode before this, I think I had talked to I've been so busy doing all this stuff. I haven't seen very many movies. And I think in the time frame from that happening to now, I think I have seen 12 movies.
Holy God, yeah, you are a machine. You turn movies into watched movies.
That is not the... I definitely had an edible and a movie day, and then I had an Aubrey Plaza double feature. We'll talk about all this. The point is that you'll be able to hear that episode for $1. Like, look, not for nothing. But $1? Like $1?
Come on.
It's great. Like, even if you never want to listen to it, even if you're like, look, I don't have enough time for the podcast I do, $1? Like, come on.
What's the worst that could happen? I get to eat food? Come on.
Yeah. Which is what we all want, ultimately. So I don't know how you want to begin this, because technically Miss Killings started as my NPC. So I don't know if you had questions prepared for me or if you want me to just start talking about the process. Also, retroactively, who do we want to credit my first question about Megalopolis to?
Yeah, we got to do some of the credits here. So I'll say this first question is going to be sponsored by Faith and Valor, a burnt grill plate from a Korean BBQ, Eardrum Espresso, and Joseph Tombrello. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I guess I'll give you my first question. Not prepared. I'm just a longtime journalist, so I can just kind of do this off the dome. What was the inspiration for Miss AJ Killing's Tiefling Warlock?
Yeah, so I think I cannot remember exactly the order in which I created things for this season completely, but I do know that at some point I wanted a character based off of Adrian Andrews, I think is her name, from Ace Attorney,
Hmm.
who was essentially just like a secretary who you feel bad for because you kind of just bully the shit out of her in a court case, and then you realize you were wrong the whole time. And you're like, oh my God, we fucked up really badly. So I wanted to play something with that. And I also I knew I had a character who I was going to be exploring a little bit of the lens of like, an innovator type. President Slater is sort of this. I wish I had a different model, but unfortunately, he's so perpetually on my fucking mind at this point. But an Elon Musk type that I was like, I wanted to explore the abusive relationship that person has with the people who are underneath them, but are still high enough in the food chain. So I wanted Miss Killings to be a complicated character. I wanted her to be somebody you probably wouldn't like from the onset because she was just going to be cold and standoffish. And if you were to ask her what she felt, like if she were to somehow be relayed of what the vibe check was like, she still wouldn't be like inherently, super positive to it. But I wanted there to be like the sign that she could change. There is a thing that comes about as you experience a show. You start to recognize patterns, and I recognize many times our players want to be friends with the people they run up against. So I always have to ask myself, like, what happens if the players crit on a persuasion check with this character and become their friends? Like, I just have to ask that question to myself with so many characters. And Miss Killings was one who I sort of set up the piece. I was like, okay, I'm going to intend to have her try this double move, this two vibe checks at once move. But if they block it, they block it. And, I just want her to be like a source of like instigation and trouble at the start of this campaign. And I had a whole boss fight potentially planned for this character. She was going to be in the middle of a sakura tree surrounded by a moat of hippopotamus, and she was going to be setting fire to the island, and it was going to be like, all right, you guys either have to kill her or, convince her to, switch her affiliation somewhere else. I had like the loose idea of what this character's path could potentially be. But mostly I just was like, okay, I want someone who represents an outside entity on the island, and in this friendly community I've set, doesn't really give a shit about like following orders and customs if she believes she followed all the rules and by no fault of her own, her deadline isn't going to get met because Mox had to take a pause from vibe checking for a while. So that's essentially how she started. And then I just, took the Adrian Andrews elements and gave her a cool name. Ron the Truth Killings is a pretty fucking dope ass name. Miss Killings was a pretty cool name. And I don't know. That's how it started.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. So there was, I think, 3 scenes where you controlled Miss Killings. There was the first confrontation in the hotel room or whatever, a meeting. I don't know why I said confrontation. It wasn't really that hostile necessarily. There was the actual confrontation outside the banyan tree after that vibe check that she interfered with, and then the last one I think was Hialeah busting into her room. You said that you had a boss fight planned. Would that have been like when we came out of the tree? If Stranger would have started swinging, or was there like other scenes?
Yeah, so I couldn't really control what the players were ultimately going to do in that vibe check. As I said, if you guys had like sussed out that she was planning to interfere with the vibe check and like you were like, hey, we should have somebody stand guard in front of the tree while we're inside of it, or be like, if something had happened that basically would have made it impossible for Miss Killing to just walk into the tree and throw a bone on top of the Bodak guts or whatever and then leave, I had to figure something out. But the ultimate thing was that her deadline was coming up. Essentially, I wasn't trying to get super deep into like the timeline of our universe, like how long is a week or anything like that. Just essentially saying like, look, if you guys don't decide to bring back President Slater now, Miss Killings will miss her deadline and she will refuse to miss her deadline. And if, push comes to shove that she's like, I'm about to lose these powers anyway, she's going to go out in a blaze of glory. So she would have just started setting fire to things, and you guys would have been like, oh, why is there smoke? And it would have been like a rush over to find her. But again, I couldn't control it. Instead, she did manage to get the body part onto it. So you guys came out and just like talked with her, and she's just like, sucks to suck. Maybe your dude should have followed his own rules or whatever, like, I don't know what you want from me. But like, I couldn't justify her just like bolting to the middle of nowhere after Hylia spoke with her and was like, hey, I think we have this plan or whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah, she's not going to become a boss at this point.
All right. Well, I think I can pass it over to you because I know you have some prepared questions. We'll say this next section sponsored by Simon Lee, Conduit of Chungus, Bearer of Dinkus, Minion of John Con, Jew-Man Jack, Polite Crow, Short Message, and Extellaris.
Aw, Polite Crow. I hope there's still rummage in there. Yeah, I think the first question is this the first time you've taken over an NPC from the DM as your character? Because, like, you didn't, I think this is the first time you've done that. Something that's been done on this show, mostly by myself, countless times. But this is Austin's first time sampling that. So what was that like?
Yeah, I think I played Anne in season 1 and Wendy in season 10. So I haven't played two characters in any season necessarily, except for all the ones where I do many, 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 many NPCs. So for me, it isn't really that big of a change. All characters are kind of equal to me. I don't think of my PCs as like special, fragile baby children who I must protect at all costs. I'm trying to constantly fling them into danger. I was so excited when you cut Wendy's wings off in season 10. I was like, sick, nasty. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I am frequently trying to contrive excuses to get my dudes killed, and then I could be a different dude. I don't know. For me, characters are just like a tool in the tool belt of storytelling, and sometimes you gotta, you bend a nail and you get a different one. It's fine. So it was cool to me. I still had a lot of fun playing Hylia, but I think I reached a point where it was like, I think I've said what I have to say about bitter writer trying to get validation by glomming onto the church. It's like, yeah, I did it. So I could have, done more comedy with her, but I just don't know how much there was left besides the stuff that we're going to get into in the vibe check, which is fun. I got to say, I know what happens the rest of the season, and it's really good.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's definitely like an end of the episode cliffhanger that I'm excited for people to hear.
I know. I'm so excited for that.
You jumped in, you took over a character, and like, what's it like? Because there is always like a challenge in taking an NPC where you're like, oh, I didn't make this completely myself, So like, I know I sometimes have a hesitancy to be like, oh, am I doing too much? Like, sometimes the audience does know that. I still catch grief about Young from season 7 to this day. Like, every so often, a little shrapnel shoots my way. So, like, it is daunting.
I have your back. I don't know. I think you took the core elements of Young, like nervous, wants to be helpful. I think you nailed it. I don't see what the big difference is. Maybe it's just the voices, but I think, like I said, there's only 3 scenes where you played killings in. So I don't think I conjured.
You really had to work from a lot of blank space.
Yeah, there wasn't like a lot of stuff to contradict, and like anything that was different could just be like stuff you hadn't learned about her yet. It's not like she's been your friend for 10 years and so suddenly she's acting different, So I felt like it was actually a really clean handover because all we knew about her was like clearly surface persona and like professional, act. So it worked out great.
Yeah, it is a situation where the dice definitely helped us tell that story because I think it was just like 2 times in a row. You guys just failed persuasion checks on her. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I think she just doesn't like you guys. Like, I think she's just going to leave. I don't know. That's what the dice are kind of telling me here.
Yeah, no, that was extremely helpful too, because I think there's a couple of different directions I could have gone with her, but having that as a guidance was just like, listen, there's a lot you don't know about her, but one thing is for sure is she's unflappable. She just will look stranger, like completely unhinged murderer directly in the eye and just be like, bite my bag. I do not care. And that's awesome. So Yeah, I mean, well, you probably have more questions about specifics here, but it was a pretty fun, easy handover. The only thing I was worried about was having enough time to do something interesting.
Sure. I mean, that is always the question. And this is another one that we can throw some sponsored names in front of.
Yeah, sure. Concept champion of the crab salute, lime but spoopy, and C.A. Little. We got to look around. I'm pausing and moving my eyes side to side to see if the Spookmaster General has entered the chat. I'm terrified.
Spookmaster General's got some weird vibes this year. Last time I tried to do it, the last time I tried to do this a week ago, if you've listened to Weekly Manga Recap, we had like tremendous technical difficulties right at the end. And then I don't know, I'm having to delay this week because Nick won't be available. It just feels weird after because I don't know what's going to happen with my friends. Their houses may be destroyed. They might lose jobs. I don't want to do that. And then next week, this thing we do, and I come in don't you mean Black Clover? I don't want to be that person.
Your shit's gonna be haunted for real. Yeah, you podcast with me in Gainesville, Nick in Tampa, and Skitch in Orlando. Look at a fun map of Hurricane Melvin, Category 5 storm right now, and just be like, well, we had a good run.
Yeah. I prior to this had about 4 people I know who lived in Florida. I could tell you right now, already one of them has left the state intentionally forever.
Yeah, it's not good, and it's getting worse.
His message to me today is he's like, I hope it destroys my house. It probably will, but I hope it does, because I'm just going to take the insurance money and just start a new life somewhere else.
Yeah, that window is closing. Insurance companies are basically starting to say, Florida is just not, it's just not negotiable. It's a deal breaker at this point. I'll throw out a couple more names, though. Christman finally changing his Patreon name. Squishy Fishy, Marine Science Guy, and Brent still every episode of Dice Funk Goatly. Thank you for the support. If my car gets crushed by a tree.
Yeah. Once again, only $1 to hear us talk about Megalopolis. And if enough of you do it, Austin might be buying himself a Megalopolis.
Oh, man. I'm going to do the whole Megalopolis review in drag for reasons that will be clear when you hear the Megalopolis review.
So the question I wanted to ask, though, is, as you said, you took this character on and you only had essentially 8 episodes to actually do things with Miss Killings. And I want to know essentially what is your thought process when you get into that moment, when you realize, oh, I'm going to be playing already. This is a shortened season because it's 2 DMs. So we're going to be doing around 16, 20 episodes each or something like that. And half of that has already gone by. I may only have, less than 10 episodes left. How do you say, how do I make this character identifiable and memorable? What do I do to make them distinct without also turning them into a Poochie character where suddenly they're now the only important character in the story?
You have to be hyper aware of your medium. So in a novel, you can spend 400 pages kind of working around an issue, lightly touching on things, foreshadowing, circling the drain. It's fine. But in a podcast, you have an hour or two, you got to be more direct. And I've just been doing this long enough. I know I can hit 2 beats per episode or so, maybe 3 beats per episode, because there's also 2 other people in the party, and the DM has settings they want to throw out. They have NPC scenes, they have fights, so you just got to be aware. It's okay, I'm going to get 2 arcs from Miss Killings. The first one is she's going to be the same character I got when I handed her over, but starting some kind of arc. So she's being really dismissive of everything. She's being cold and pragmatic, but everyone starts calling her on her shit. This is where I had to rely on Dan and Sarah, because if there's no feedback, or if they just kind of accept what I'm doing, then there's no impetus to change. So I didn't really discuss this with them, but they started pushing back on Killings, being hey, take this seriously. What's your fucking problem? And then I think the best moment was I botched on something, and you took away my Eldritch Blast because in universe, the tree was just disapproving of my shenanigans, and that was a wake up call that oh, I have to not act like that. It wasn't just oh, I'm going to turn the switch from dickhead to good, but it was like, oh, hey, here's a thing. Something's happening with her.
Here's an impetus. Let's see what that causes at that point. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's an interesting scenario you get placed in where you're like, I have to hit these beats, but I know how to do it. Like, I'm sure for you specifically, because you're also the one who like edits and writes the episode like descriptions. So you know you need a Miss Killings does something in an episode. Like you know that in the,
Unironically, I use the episode description as like a way to kind of mentally structure like arcs and stuff. Like part of the thing I say is like, we usually go 2 hours per recording, but I would go an hour if everyone had a beat.
Yeah.
Like if there was enough narrative content to release that to people to enjoy, like I would do that. But if we went for 4 hours and no one had fucking done anything, I wouldn't release that. I'd be embarrassed. So like literally everyone needs to do something. Everyone needs to get a hand on the ball just for it to be a good product. And yeah, like every episode, it doesn't need to necessarily tangibly advance something, but like what was Killings there for? Like how did she participate? Be like, yeah, the episode descriptions, if you don't read them, they really do kind of lay out. I like to be able to read them back to back to back and be able to know the whole story.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think there is something very powerful to that. Sometimes it is also just fun references to a lot of like botches and stuff like that, but yeah, I really appreciate it as a way to like tell a little bit of the story very quickly. I guess is it a question related to Miss Killings? But I did want to ask, where did you start? Like, I know the rule of threes, but like, is that just what you came to, or is this like an inspiration from something else?
No, I just try to think of the most important thing every character did in the episode. That's like second like paragraph, and the first one is just a kind of a general description, so that if you read the description of every episode in sequence, you would get kind of a non-spoiler outline of the whole story,
Gotcha.
Like a synopsis, basically.
Yeah. So I guess let's throw some more names in there as I get ready for another question.
Perfect. We got another Halloween one here. A werewolf has enough money to breathe again. Hooray. Congratulations, werewolf. The space fighters. Nicole is carving a pumpkin while keeping direct eye contact with stranger.
Oh, no.
Chase. Yeah, he's going to take that personally. Chase Sterling and Tara is giving money to say hi to all the cats, which is very important.
That is.
Professor Peanuts did cockblock our recording yesterday.
I mean, do we want to talk about that real quick? Do we want to discuss that? Because the way that's phrased implies things. And it is worth noting, he simply rested his weary head. And I said, oh, I might be a little late. And Austin was like, defeat him with logic and reason. And
yeah,
instead he turned and got more comfortable.
Yeah, I have a policy that animals have very little way to affect the world. They just have, a small amount of agency and very little ability to communicate. So if an animal does express a preference, I try to defer to them, because like there's so many times when they can't tell me what they want. So yeah, I don't like when a cat is like using you as a little napping spot. That you're just stuck there.
Yeah.
I firmly believe in this. I almost ended my current relationship very early on when I was on a date with Jo at her apartment, and her cat Aoife sat on my lap, and she told me later, she's like, I thought you were mad at me or you didn't like me because you just sat there stones perfectly still for like 2 hours and like didn't interact with me. And I was like, Aoife was busy. This is important.
I love that it is just genuinely that, because I was like, anyone else would be a little annoyed because we had made plans. It was like, hey, you want to record at this time tonight? Like, absolutely. And then like 10 minutes before, I was like, I don't know what to tell you, bud. Cat's not moving. And then you were like, nah, it's fine. I'm like, no, I mean, like, if I just ignored you and didn't show up, that'd be real. Like, I'll just move him. You were like, don't you fucking dare. This cat needs to have his autonomy respected.
But yes, Professor Peanuts came first. He was the priority over talking about our fucking elves.
Wow. Fair. The question I want to ask, though, is let's talk, I guess, a little bit about the arc of Miss Killings, which is you acquire a stuffy, no-nonsense kind of a bitch assistant. And, in acquiring her powers have changed. They're now more tree-like, but also you're still sticking to that. Miss Killings at the start of her vibe checks is very like, I wanted to say dismissive, but like there's not reverence there like there was with Hialeah, and then that slowly shifts over the course of the vibe check she's a part of until eventually you just roll. I can't even remember if it was really well or really badly on taking drugs.
Yeah, it was in a second downtime where I played as her. Everyone's under the banyan tree talking about basically the last arcs, like how are we going to kill White, how are we going to stop the Banana Baron, and she took Last Rites, the drug that Stranger made, and I think I botched the Constitution save. So I was like, this really, she goes through a bad trip, she sees her whole life from beginning to end, which is the stated effect of the drug, and she like realizes like how small she is in the grand scheme of things, how petty her ambitions, I genuinely think this is a fascinating subject. We don't have to go all the way deep into it, but drugs are just a fascinating thing in the world, and they can have negative and positive influences in your life, and sometimes influences that are both. So I don't want to just say, I don't want it to be like, oh, if you take drugs, you will get more empathy. It's unalloyed good, unproblematic fave. I think it's much more complicated than that. And it also isn't immediate. It's like it opened her up to questioning her worldview. It's not like she instantly became a Hialeah style religious zealot. In fact, she still, I think she actually is really still in line with her pragmatism and like self-interest. She just realized the tree is the most powerful protection she can get from the world, and it's the most power she can wield.
Yes, I agree on that. I think there is this very, I don't know, it's very curious. If you were to ask me when I started doing Dice Funk, I was such an innocent young babe in many ways. It was so dumb and hot, and I just didn't realize how drug focused our podcast was. I didn't despite the fact that was essentially Lauren's entire character in season 4. I just never like really had comprehended it, because I think at that point I had been high like maybe twice in my life, and neither time particularly good highs. They were just like from vape carts, so it's just really kind of like a head high, like not really anything else. And it wasn't until much later that I discovered it myself, and I have context to now add to a certain level of that. But I do think that it can be a very significant thing. It's funny because I think in another game, in another world, saying something like my character starts doing drugs would be like quiet gasps around the table, and like the drama begins. Like I played a character addicted to a drug in Dan's old campaign that we used to stream, and it was like this haunting, harrowing thing. And like in Dice Funk, if your character says it, it's just like, okay, cool. Like we're gonna have there's gonna be a couple laughs. Maybe someone has to make a roll or something like that. But this is good times. Like the party's just beginning.
I mean, you say that, and it certainly has taken on that kind of valence in some seasons. But I would say in season 6. Nifix's downfall was extremely related to her substance abuse in a way that I think some people found uncomfortable. I think it's genuinely some of the best character work Laura has ever done. But it's like in this kind of slapstick fucking Rick and Morty ass, like
I was gonna say, because like 3 seasons later there's like 5 people around a mic chaining cocaine 2 into the microphone over and over again, so like you never know what vibe you're gonna get.
And yeah, that is, I mean, I think just honestly that is where I come down as an artist on the subject, is that it's complicated, it's nuanced. So I think there's a version of Miss Killings' arc where she takes Last Rites, realizes she's a tiny speck in the universe, and is like, oh, then I guess nothing matters, fuck it, I'm gonna ball, like I'm going sicko mode, I'm gonna betray everyone, or whatever. Like I think we all are witnessing what doing ketamine every day does to your brain on X, the Everything app. If you haven't noticed, I think there's an extremely evil version of that. It just so happens that I think Sarah's first instinct was like, Lillian comforts you.
Yeah, let me get you a blanket, and it's like, oh love.
Yeah, and then going forward, where the two of them going into the final dry arc everyone was very supportive. Lillian's giving a good big speech. I believe in you. We can defeat White. We see Stranger's backstory, and Stranger's like, but I wanted to protect my brother and my home, and like, I don't know. It's just the positive vibes there that kind of contributed to what it became.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a super fun kind of engagement with the character as well, because it was like I don't know. There's some times where like you do down times as a DM, and you're not really sure how relevant the downtime is going to be to you, the DM. Like, obviously, you expect your the characters to grow and change through the conversations they have, but there's not often times I'm very specifically like writing notes. But I did have to like take the notes down of like Miss Killings takes last rites is changed. Like it's one of those things where you're just like, oh, this is like a consequential thing for something that could have been extremely inconsequential. Like, we didn't make the wine that makes you gay into a plot relevant thing at the end of the season. Spoilers, I guess, for the rest of the season, but like, not every joke we mention is going to have, I think, a narrative payoff. But the idea that like Last Rites is this very unique drug experience, it just kind of sight unseen Miss Killing's like, fuck it, we ball. That takes one. It's those decisions that just suddenly can influence your character. And I always think, how interesting is it to where you pick and choose those moments? Because what makes Miss Killings here, could so easily have been defined in like a different way. You could have been like, oh, my character talks to Harper instead, and actually she's now a hockey player. She's now part of this ice hockey team he's trying to create, and that's like the big thing. Like, you never know where these things can necessarily go.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any pre-existing relationships with NPCs to draw on. I think, with Hylia dead, the only person who had a meaningful exchange with Killings was Stranger, really. And what's funny is that Stranger immediately admired Killings' like goal-oriented pragmatism in a way that I think may have been surprising if you weren't paying close attention. I think you could easily have been like, well, Stranger fucking hates Killings, obviously, because he threatened her on screen. But like once they were on the same team, they were both like, I got shit to do, and they kind of appreciated that about each other in a way that might have been surprising. I that's one of those things that's like, it's obvious to me playing the character, but I don't know the listening experience. Just like I don't know how obvious it is listening that the Last Rites was just us riffing. I did not go into that session with any idea that would happen.
That's the thing. It's like none of this is planned. Sometimes I'll go in thinking like, okay, this is what I think my character is going to do, but I don't think you came into it being like, well, Last Rites is going to be on the table. A drug that was kind of invented in the moment.
As a joke. No, if anything, I thought what was going to be like the cornerstone of her development or her story was I kind of improv during the race vibe check where she said like, oh, I knew about the Well of Resurrection because I considered it for my dog, because I like literally one of the only things I had to work with is that she had this dog, and so I just like was just riffing on that. I was just improvising off of, oh, she's a dog person, she had a dog when she was growing up, so I was just I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I think I edited out a long pause or a part where I had to think of a name for her dog, and I decided that in this universe Frank Westerly as like a Robin Hood character that you would name a dog after, because I thought that was just like a fun I'm sorry, I did lore reference. You know how much of a hypocrite that makes me.
I know. We all judge you quietly, silently, sternly.
But I thought that was going to be like an important thing for her. I mean, it's not that it was unimportant. It establishes she loves dogs and that she had some pre-existing thoughts about the responsibility of the well or selfishness. That also came from a very personal place. While we were doing pre-production for this show, my cat passed and your dog Scotia passed, who I was very fond of, and they were extremely upsetting life events. Like I honestly just pulled that whole speech about killing his dog. I just control F'd, Aoife, and just put in Frank Westerly there. Because I mean, genuinely, she was, an older cat. She's not like, decrepitly elderly. She passed from cancer, and it's like, I miss her very much. If I could bring her back, sorry to bring the the mood down. If I could bring her back, would it be for me or for her? It's like extremely selfish. I am sad. Was she happy with her body? I don't know. It's not. That was just, I'm putting so much real, genuine shit in our show. People were like, tell a joke.
No, I don't. One, they aren't. I think there's a natural sort of reaction that we have sometimes when we're authentic to be like, nobody's here for this. But I don't think that's the case. I think most people are here for this, unfortunately. They're like, no, please rip off your skin and expose every intimate part of yourselves to the camera, if you would, please.
I mean, I did get a couple of messages from people saying that they had to stop listening to the season because they had experienced a loss, and it was like too real. Which is, I mean, in some sense flattering, because it means we're doing something real enough to hurt. Like if you were just like, whatever, this is all fake giggle bullshit, then I would be like, oh, I guess we aren't actually doing anything here.
Yeah, I mean, grief was absolutely a major element of this season. I didn't explore it as much for a similar reason, in that, a lot of my grief was tied to my brother passing, and I was like, I kind of don't want to super bring down the mood of Dice Funk to just be like, how do you feel now that a piece of yourself is irrevocably removed? And like, I was like, well, we don't want to jump in on that. But I do think people appreciate when our characters can expose an element of honesty in us. And I think it was just a very, very poignant moment from Miss Killings that I guess we kind of interrupted your thought process. But like, that would have been sort of like, what would have been the dynamic change for Miss Killings after revealing that piece of information? Like, what were you thinking? This is also some names. Throw some names in there.
Yeah, we'll say this answer is sponsored by Egon, God of Death, Mickelvain, Spirit of Gender, Shrug, they greater than she greater than he, 666 Neopet 666, and I up my donation so Austin can have a family, and you should too. I appreciate it. The question of like where Killings could have gone is, of course, my very boring answer is like, oh, I have many ideas and any of them could have happened. So I know that's boring, but I think where I was going with it was that I wanted to get Killings on the team. I wanted her to be helpful, and like, it's annoying when a character in a party of Dungeons and Dragons is like constantly undermining you. But I wanted her to get there at a different angle from Hylia, like. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my goal. So I was looking for any opportunity for her to be kind of loyal, useful, skilled member of the church, but not just do she's fascinated with religion and it gives her an excuse to kind of play to her ego or whatever. So ultimately it came down to like the powers. I mean, that's what you set up. It was like she wanted the powers from Slater. She's willing to kill for the powers. She wants the powers. So if we don't get the last rites, I think we're going somewhere in the other direction where it becomes more about the power to bring people back from the dead. What does that do for her? I mean, I often, another thing I do is I try to find what motivation the other players aren't using and just go there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, for season 10, like, no one was as vocally into, trying to kill the bad Illithids as I was, maybe hoping. So I was like, no, that's Wendy's thing, And so here it's like, if no one was super into revival, like Lillian's like, I want to help people, I want to do good. And Stranger's like, I care about my home and my brother, and like gross corpse stuff. I was like, okay, then Killings is like Resurrection Master General.
Yeah, I think that's a curious world to imagine, but I do love that exploration. There's a lot to kind of unpack in what that universe would be. But I suppose that's not what the intention of this show is. We're I guess talking about the things that actually happened.
We can do whatever. You want to talk about like what would have happened if Reaper had a cool hat? All the different implications.
She'd have been so much more annoying. Oh, she'd have been bringing up that hat all the time. She did get a cool hat eventually, but it wasn't hers, really. It's Boyce's. So, yeah, I think, I don't know, there was definitely a fun narrative to Miss Killings, and I enjoyed her, and I was so excited to see you were able to have so much fun with her as a character, and I guess one of the sort of the last questions I have here, I have kind of two final ones. One is a mechanical question. You know, we've been doing this show for a very long time. You are a big proponent of, if we've kind of done something before, let's try to avoid doing it again. That goes with characters as well. So how did you tackle Warlock, a class famously used all the fucking time in Dice Funk because they're kind of broken with the way we do the show? How did you enjoy that? Like, what were you trying to capture that was unique to Miss Killings?
Yeah, I say answer sponsored by Dustin Darkwater. A gambling pig has no regrets except most of his 20s. Nephisticidia, the queer sheep, poor jobless living in a van but finally free of state service. Aaron Norgard, and Tsukagi's husband. That I wanted to do a different thing with the Warlock and not rely on Eldritch Blast, but I did end up doing Eldritch Blast, so I'm sorry about who I am as a person. No, I think I ended up going with some unusual invocations and spells and stuff to kind of make up for the boringness of just doing that in combat. I think there's different ways to express a character. A thing I go back to is like season 5, when Laura was playing a ranger and she was often disappointed. She's like, oh, I mean, it's my turn. I guess I shoot because I'm a ranger. I shoot at the bad guy. I don't tend to find that boring. Like when I'm Wendy,
I love that.
I'm so excited when I was Wendy and I was like, my turn. I was like, well, how big can the number get? Okay, I'm done. Like, I don't know. Someone else can do some stuff now.
King Badass was maybe my favorite character to play, if only because I was just like, okay, I'm just going to shout out a bunch of numbers and you're going to tell me which ones hit. And then I'm just going to do a bunch of more numbers. And then at the end of it, my turn is done.
Yeah, I think if every character in the party was that way, maybe that would get boring. But Stranger is turning into weird fucking animals. You know, bards have all kinds of weird different spells and abilities. So I felt like my time was better spent thinking about how she was conducting herself in combat, what she was saying, like how she was, approaching things like visually. There's parts where I was making like paint stairs for her to climb up while she was attacking Commander Cassidy. It's just weird stuff like that. So I was just like putting that energy into other things besides the numbers. So like when I watch a Jackie Chan movie, it's okay if he does a punch that he's done before, you know, because it's not about that necessarily.
Whoa, he's gonna do the same punch?
Yeah, but eventually he'll jump off something really high up, and that'll be the part that really sings. And for me, that was the invocations like the Tomb of Lovistus, which I have never seen anyone use in a podcast or in real life. It's a warlock invocation that as a reaction, you become entombed in ice, gain a bunch of hit points, and a weakness to fire. And I saw that, and I was like, that's so outside of anything we've ever done. And I can reflavor the ice as roots, and still the fire weakness makes sense. And then that what I thought was such a bow on her character arc, because she's doing all this to have power, and she doesn't like respect the power religiously, but she respects what it can do for her. And when it literally saves her life in the transactional world in which she comes from, she now owes her life to the tree. And it's like such a source of safety and protection from, you know, the kind of the wolves of the biome she came from. I don't know. I just felt like such a perfect way to end that story, and that's why this episode's late coming out, because it's like the arc doesn't make sense without the Tomb of Lovistus.
Yes, absolutely, complete agreement. And the final question I have here is, now that everything's said and done, you know, you've listened to all of season 11. You've been a part of it at this point. The audience will still have a couple episodes and Miss Killing's epilogue to kind of go through. So I won't, spoil anything to that degree. But where does sort of Miss Killing stand for you as one of the characters you've played? Like, what do you kind of feel about her now that you're done? Is this something like you're like, oh, there was something in this I didn't get to explore that maybe I could take to another character? Or, oh, now I know I don't want to do a warlock next time. I want to do something else. Like, I'm just kind of curious where your mindset is post Miss Killings to a degree.
Sure, I think we're all building up like a stable, like a library of beloved characters we can contrast and make commentary on with other characters. So I'll say this answer is sponsored by Miles and Danny love Dice Funk forever. A good Brent Twitter bitch for Let's Talk About Snacks podcast, Midlife Stasis, Conduit of Inevitability, Dr. Goatman, and finally Francois V, a deleted scene and everything everywhere all at once. Thank you for supporting the show and making it happen. I mean, the show would literally just cease to exist without these beloved listeners. I think that I have reached the end of my combative character abilities. I think with Wendy, being a head exploding mess, Anne being a face burning mess, Hialeah being kind of an egotistical train wreck, and then Killings being this cutthroat pragmatist. I think I've done all of that, and I want to make some nicer characters. I'm proud and happy of all that work. I think I've explored that space thoroughly. I don't think I repeated myself. They're not shitty in the same ways, but I tend to, I think, make more aggressive or abrasive characters just because the people I play with tend to make sweeties. A lot of people
are always making little sweetie pies, little cuties.
Yeah, I think a lot of players who have been on the show just don't be mad at me. My guy's a little baby and it's his birthday. So I just want to fill the gap and be like, my person's kind of a greasy little weasel. And I think my weasel era is over. So season 12, I am not a player character. I'm DMing that whole thing. But everyone knows season 13, Dan and I are splitting it. Fear biome and courage biome.
What I find so funny, I shouldn't interrupt you. But I just need to know, you've been my next character is going to be a lot friendlier. And I know your concept for season 13, and I am trying to process how that's going to be a fun character to hang out with.
No, I think if you're a citizen of the courage biome, this is a nightmare person for you. But in the context of the fear biome, I have made a sweetie, I think.
Okay.
That's what I'm going for. Who knows? Maybe a couple of roles, maybe a couple of interactions, and it goes a different way. But I want to try to go into that space more just to show you what a nice Austin character can look like. Although I have been 100 NPCs. I've made some sweeties over there too, but I guess it hits different, I think, with the big ones.
There's definitely a thing that people want that PC to be a real sweetie. I'm very curious to see how Dragon season comes out, because we've noted that we're going to try a couple different things in it. But everybody wants a couple sweeties in their PCs, because they're like, oh, I want to draw fun little cute fan art of them. And then Miss Killings or Wendy comes along and they're like, well, can you draw me flying out of someone's exploding head? Because that's what I do.
Yeah, I think every season is let's try something different. Let's do a season with two DMs. Let's do a season where, Quinn, you start and end the season instead of me. It's just sometimes there are little things. Let's do downtimes with player to player. That's not that huge of a change. But next season, we're going to be trying some things. Season 13, we're going to be trying some things. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. But we're not obligated to them forever, so it's fine. I don't see myself coming back to a warlock anytime soon. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think I've seen it done really well on the show. We've had a lot of great warlocks, and I don't know that I have anything to add yet. Maybe something will come out and I'll have a great idea, but I'm definitely sending in sheets for seasons 13, 14, and maybe beyond. I'm thinking of them at least, and I haven't gone back to a warlock anytime soon. But we haven't even talked about, I was saying, in addition to the Tomb of Levistus, some of the stuff I did with her specific warlock patron, because in the main player's handbook, it's Fae, Fiend, and Cthulhu. I did the genies from a later book, and specifically the Earth Genie, which is the closest I could think of to a tree, and that gave me flight, which is interesting. I don't know if people retain the image of Miss Killing sprouting vines out of her back and flapping them like wings or whatever. But I was that's the kind of stuff I was trying to focus on with her as a warlock rather than the Eldritch Blast, which is just very functional. It's just Conan swings the sword. You know how Conan the Barbarian do. Yeah,
exactly. Now, one element that we haven't really discussed about Miss Killings is her beloved Palm Iranian Jericho, who ends up being the one to kill White. Do you consider that a kill in your count? Like, if you were Legolas and Gimli, are you counting a tally on White when he goes down? You're like, I mean, my dog did it, so that should definitely count towards me.
I mean, I'm not interested in taking credit away from Jericho, who's a very good boy, who I love very much. I mean, I'll say that going into the season, I was like, we said a lot of shit in season 9. Don't feel beholden to any of it. It could have changed in the years. The only thing that's important to me is Rattlesnake and Plantimals. So I was glad we got some good Plantimal action. But I will say, if anyone is keeping track, I did have to use part of Killings' Warlock abilities to get the Pact of the Chain and then Investiture of the Chain Master, which are like meaningful choices I took instead of some alternative, which allowed me to use my bonus action to attack as Jericho. So there's a version where I instead chose like, I get more spells, or I get a special Warlock sword. Those are other things I could have done, and that I could not have attacked with Jericho as my bonus action. And as we noted during that episode, I think everyone dies if that doesn't happen.
Very possibly, very, very possibly everyone dies in that scenario. But a good dog. I guess that's really all you could say. What a great dog Jericho is.
I mean, I think what it probably would have happened is like, okay, at the end of the turn, Killing takes hail damage. I use Last Rites to negate that, and then she is like fucking brain damaged from living her entire life twice inside of one life. And then the next turn, like Stranger gets knocked out of Scorpion, but is still alive. Maybe Lillian gets knocked to 0 and is dying, and then maybe Stranger does a killing blow. Like, we still win, but like we are in a different place.
Well,
like,
also, not only that, White kills somebody. That was the big thing. Is basically you killed him before he got another turn where he was going to deal enough damage to kill at least one of the Vanguard. So
yeah. Speaker Mox, a character I did not spend any time with, is highly kind of felt bad because he was like the first NPC you introduced, which kind of flags him as more important than others, but we just kind of ignored him. So complete surprise to me that Killings had 2 very fun conversations with him. I think some people were like even like shipping them and stuff. They just had
I think that's very cute. I love the conversation that Mox and Miss Killings had. That's honestly probably my favorite moment of Miss Killings throughout the season, is just like a very tender moment that the two of them share as they're both kind of mentally preparing for the reality they're probably not going to live to see the next day. Like, they're all kind of like saying like, this might go very poorly. In fact, it probably will. But yeah, I thought it was genuinely a sweet moment between the two of them. And I'm glad you took that chance to be like, I'm going to talk to Mox. Because again, as you said, you had no connection to that character. You could have been like, let me talk to that fucking wacky robot. Like,
yeah, I don't remember exactly how the conversation started. I think she might have just been like asking him about the battle and stuff. Like, can you turn into any animals that could be helpful? Like just some excuse or whatever. And it just kind of wound its way through a pretty organic conversation. Like you and I had no previous discussion about like what that would be. So yeah, I love that we went through the entire Killings interview and never got into Commander Commodore Cassidy, which just Dice Funk. You never know where we're going. You cannot guess our next move. We're zagging on you.
Yeah, we're always zagging. That's our big thing. I was going to mention at the very end there. Do you think? Because I feel like I can't say, because I feel like it maybe comes up at the end of the last, like at the end of the season, is like one of the questions. Like, do you think they ever become any level of friends? Like, do you think these two ever begin to kind of like each other? And the answer to that is an astounding wait till the end of the season, I think. But that was just a fun dynamic, completely decided arbitrarily. I think you just asked, like, what happens when Miss Killian sees Cassidy? And I'm like, she runs the fuck away.
Yeah, I was trying to just... I think in the episode where Hylia greets the commander on the docks, I think I tried to instigate some kind of interaction between the two, and you just had her run away. So I just took that as, like... existing enmity or something. Like, I realized you just didn't want to talk to yourself, NPC to NPC, but I just ran with it.
I mean, it's a little of both.
Yeah, her epilogue concerns this very question, which I think is fun. I didn't purposefully model this on like Master Evers and Reaper, but I do think it's interesting that the two characters were very bloodthirsty for a specific person, and I personally was very invested in who would kill who in both of those pairs.
Yeah, you'll have to wait and see to find out that answer for Reaper. But, there's still potentially a chance for old Miss Killings and Cassidy if you got those ships ready to sail.
Yeah, well, enjoy the rest of the wet arc, listeners. It's very good. I, in fact, think the finale of this arc, it's a 3-episode arc like they usually are, is like some of the best work I've done in years. I think it really pops off in a major way. And then the epilogue stuff, very fun. So I hope you enjoyed the season. It's been a lot of fun to make, and if we survive the hurricane, could make some dragon stuff for you to enjoy. Big lizards coming your way.
Now, Austin, important question.
Oh yeah.
Do you think your 1 year of medical school entitles you to plow through the riches of my Emersonian mind?
And you think 1 year of medical school entitles you to plow through the riches of my Emersonian mind?
Entitles me?
Yes.
Entitles me?
Yes.
Entitles me?
Yes.
You have no idea about me. You think I am nothing? Just a socialite?
No, not nothing, but I reserve my time for people who can think about science and literature and architecture and art. You find me cruel, selfish and unfeeling? I am. I work without caring what happens to either of us. So go back to the club, bear it all, and stock the kind of people that you enjoy.
Fine. I will.
Come back when you have more time.
Yes. I saw you change the laws of physics. Could it be the great Caesar Catalina doesn't obey anything, not even T symmetry?
Hell yeah. I was literally going to say, I have to go back to the club to end this podcast, but that's a good one too. Every line of Megalopolis should be engraved on a fucking slab of marble.
I want that tattooed onto my back. It's such a fucking... I've never comprehended such a pompous line, but also I can totally see Elon Musk writing it on Twitter at some point, unironically, like, do you think it allows you to plow the riches of my Emersonian mind?
What? How can you even say that with a straight face? Incredible. That's what smoking weed every day for 80 years will do to your mind.
Holy shit. We'll talk about so much Metropolis, or Megalopolis. We will also talk about Metropolis. We'll talk about so much Megalopolis. So you just have to give $1. Again, it's $1. Come on, do it. Don't do it on iPhone though. Do it on a computer. But like, come on, it's $1, guys.
And when I feel like we just need to start a dialogue about supporting me on Patreon. You know, if we just have this conversation, it's like we're already living in a utopia.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. I mean, really, a large part of Megalopolis's theming really is that like utopias are possible with conversation. The movie doesn't really earn that ending, but it is like a concept to dig into of just like, maybe with more proper communication, we can create utopia. Communication to this extent is, of course, you pledging at least $1 to Austin's Patreon. Once again, not on an iPhone. Make sure you go to a web browser, use Safari, Google Chrome. If you must do it on an iPhone, just make sure it's on it. Don't do it in, Apple's app, and don't subscribe through Apple. So that's the important thing.
Together, we can all come together to build a bright future with the moving sidewalks, I guess, is the big thing.
Tiny bow and arrows, again, what I really go to. It's very adorable to me because I'm like, well, I know guns exist in this universe. Why didn't you just use one of those, especially when you were planning to take multiple shots? You had to keep loading up this tiny bow and arrow with an equally tiny quiver of arrows. It's so much of a choice that I can't help but be fascinated by it.
Just for style points, John Voight would have done a 360 no scope on them, but they didn't have the budget. It all went to the CG, I think.
Yeah, so that's going to be it for, I guess, this season of Crew Gunk. Or maybe, I don't know if there's another episode. I don't know how you plan to do it. But I've been WoW Platinum. and you've been...
I've been Caesar, Aurelius, Plato, Socrates, the fourth.
I don't think you're far off from his name.
Thank you, Anti-WoW.
You're welcome.
Reaching out to catch the sun, to hold it in our hands, longing for something strong, to hide our weaknesses. The light may disappear, nothing is meant to